Assalamualaikum. So I'm sorry. I know I said I will do a mystery makeup Saturday, but I always end up researching about the case on Friday, and then I would use Saturday to film it and edit it. And by the time I finish the editing, it gets pretty late. So from now on, it's going to be mystery makeup Sunday, inshallah. So this is part 2 of the Javed Iqbal case, and I'm really sorry if my camera is going out of focus in focus again and again because Nikon. So I kind of noticed that I left a couple of details in part 1 of the video, and the major detail being that Javed was known as Khukri. Now Khukri is like a bent knife or a bent dagger sort of thing, and at some places he's also referred to as Mukri, or I don't know, Makri. I don't know if it's Makri, then Makri is like a spider. It's a spider is called Makri in Urdu, but if it's Mukri, then I don't know. Let me know down in the comments what this word means. So let's begin part 2 of this video, and I would just put on the disclaimer right now. So we left off where Javed sent letters to both the police and the local newspaper, the Daily Jung, and in that letter he had said that he had sexually assaulted 100 boys before killing them, and that all the details of the murders are contained in 32-page notebook that is placed inside the house. And also, I will just pause it right here and I would now tell you what he actually did. So, do you guys remember in part 1 of the video I told you that he was severely beaten up by an employee of his, and he was robbed, and then he was in the hospital unconscious for almost 22 days, and that his mother also died of grief. It's just a quick recap. So after that, when he found out, so his all of his assets had to be sold in order to pay his medical bills. So after he got recovered and after he got out of the hospital, he went to the police, obviously, to to file an FIR against this boy who beat him up. But instead, the police, they involved him in a sexual assault case, and they didn't believe him. And obviously he was very heartbroken since his mother also passed away from this grief. He made his 4 young friends, Sabir, Sajid and Nadeem, and also Ishaq Billah, his accomplices. And now I'm gonna continue what happened in a span of that 6-month period, because he sent that letter in December of 1999. Now this is a whole year after. So before beginning all this, Javed actually bought a house in Ravi Road, and this was a very small house. It was a 3-bedroom house, and it had a small courtyard. So what Javed would do is he would go to the main market, go to the main the market where all these orphan and homeless children were. There was a boy and his brother, and their names were Riaz and Ijaz. And Ijaz was a bit older than Riaz, and they used to come up to people, and basically older men or women, and they used to offer to massage them. Javed actually told Ijaz and Riaz that his one of his legs is paralyzed and he needs a massage. Riaz and Ijaz both, they set off to go with Javed, but then Ijaz was like, he told Riaz that he's gonna come back soon, so Riaz should go or Riaz should stay behind. So Riaz agreed, and Ijaz went with Javed to that house. Back in the house, Javed first took a photograph of Ijaz, and after taking the photograph, he gave Ijaz a very strong kind of sedative. And before he got knocked out, Javed would ask very sort of personal questions from Ijaz, sort of like, where is your family, or what have you gone through life, and where do you come from, where do you belong, where is your family, and stuff like that. This was a way to try to get his guard down, and Ijaz would answer all these questions, and obviously he would feel as if somebody actually cared to ask him, because he was a homeless boy. So this was kind of a tactic of Javed. He would slowly get the kid's guard down, and then he would make his move. So after Ijaz got knocked down from the sedative, Javed would sexually assault him, and then he would, after sexually assaulting him, he would wrap an iron chain a very thick iron chain around Ijaz's neck, and then he would strangle him to death, and then he would cut his body into small pieces, basically dismember his body, and then he would dissolve all the pieces in acid. And after he had done all this, he would go and write the details of this murder in his notebook, his diary. You remember that 32-page notebook? And do you remember he took a photograph of Ijaz? He would write picture number 57 behind that picture. But in reality, Ijaz was his 97th victim. Because later on, when he gave a list of all his victims to the police and the authorities, Ijaz was on 97th on the list. So afterwards, when Riaz asked Javed that where did his brother go, or his brother didn't return home, and he was supposed to return home early in the morning, Javed would tell him that, oh, he left early in the morning and I don't know where he went. So during his 6-month killing spree, Javed kept a notebook in which he wrote all the details of the murders, listing the victims' names, their ages, and the dates of their deaths. And he also recorded the exact cost of disposing each child. He said, in terms of expense, including the acid, it cost me 120 rupees to erase each victim. He also revealed later on that hair and bones took a lot longer than flesh to dissolve in the acid. So he would wait till all of it would thoroughly dissolve and liquefy, and then he would dispose of this liquid in a nearby sewer. So the neighbors would, start to smell all this horrible stench, and obviously Javed had to do something about it. So he started disposing of all these, all this victim in Ravi River. This is how he would murder and dispose of the bodies of all his victims, the 100 children. So going back to the incident, after he was finished with all his 100 victims, and when he sent that letter to both the police and the Daily Jung newspaper, police, they didn't believe him. They didn't believe the letter, and they just crumpled the letter and they just threw it in the dustbin because they didn't believe it. But when they learned that the media was on its way towards the house, that's when police, they got serious and they retrieved the crumpled letter from the dustbin, and then they took matters seriously and they dispatched the police towards the Ravi Road house. So when police reached this house, the media was already there before them, and it was like a horror museum. The floors and the walls were covered with blood, and there was a big iron chain, the iron chain he used to strangle the kids with. There was a big iron chain along with 2 barrels of acid, and in these barrels there were still human skeletal remains inside them. And later on it was revealed that though one of the skeletons was that of Ijaz, and the other boy, he was unidentified, and police also recovered 1 more body. So total of 3 bodies were recovered from that home. The other 2 boys, they were unidentified because the third body, it was badly decomposing, so they couldn't identify the other 2. Also, besides these barrels, there were hundreds of small play cards, or small notes kind of thing, like kind of sticky notes. There were hundreds of small play cards on the walls, neatly placed on the walls, and each of them contained the names of the victims and the details of how they were murdered and how they were disposed of. So one of the play cards read that the bodies in the house have deliberately not been disposed of so that the authorities will find them after my suicide. And another play card read, I'm going to commit suicide by jumping in Ravi River. So obviously he was going to get away, so police had to do something, and they immediately went to Ravi River. But it was found out later on that that was a big hoax or a distraction so that Javed and his accomplices could get away. But soon after, his accomplices were arrested at Sohava while they were cashing a traveler's check of 18,000 rupees, but Javed was still at large. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that also at the crime scene, besides the play cards, the barrels of acid and the iron chain, there were at least 9 plastic bags in which there were belongings and clothes and shoes of all the victims. And there were at least 86 pairs of shoes that were recovered from these 9 plastic bags. So the next morning, police displayed all of these belongings, all of the shoes, the clothes, and all of the other belongings, also the photographs of all the victims in the Ravi police station. And by next morning, 4 boys were identified by their parents. So for the next few days, the relatives of the missing boys from as far as Sargodha, Faisalabad, Multan, Toba, Tek Singh, Peshawar and Mardan flocked to the police station till 11th December. Now this is 9 days after all of that, all of the letters being delivered to the police. So that was 2nd December when Javed sent the letters to the police, and now it's 11th December. So 9 days after, the parents of at least 72 missing children identified their pictures and belongings. And even Riaz, the brother of Ijaz, he identified his brother Ijaz through a photograph. And in this photograph, he was wearing a blue shirt, which was apparently given by Javed to Ijaz before murdering him. Because Ijaz was wearing a white shirt at the time, and he was also wearing an ankle bracelet that Riaz also identified from the belongings. So several teams of police investigators were set up, and in a few hours after this whole incident was unearthed, the police took into their custody the Javed's brothers and their friends and his friends, and also 9 other suspects that Javed claimed assisted him in all these murders. However, this whole investigation came to a halt when Ishaq Billah allegedly took his own life while still being in police custody. He was being questioned at the time when he allegedly jumped from a 3-story building and took his own life. The public wasn't happy with this because the one and only lead that they had in finding Javed, he was gone, and obviously because the other 3 accomplices, they were too young to say or tell anything, the whole attention of the police investigators shifted from Javed Iqbal into saving the police whose custody Ishaq was in, because it was a major setback to the Lahore police. So they had to replace the whole team of police officers that were involved in questioning Ishaq. So on 30th December, and this is a whole month after all this fiasco, Javed suddenly walked into the Daily Jung's office and he surrendered himself. But before giving him over to the police, the Daily Jung's editor, he hired a cameraman and he recorded all of his confession in video and audio recording. So Javed told the editor that he basically surrendered himself because he feared for his own life, that the police were after him and that he was concerned that the police will kill him. So police took Javed into custody and his court session began in January of 2000. So when I was reading about all the court proceedings and all, basically all the court proceedings, it was one of the saddest that I read in any case, or I've heard in any case, because the police, they were, most of the time, the police busy in restraining the weeping and the crying and the cursing parents, and the parents, they held vigils outside the court proceedings, throughout the court proceedings. They demanded the death penalty for Javed. Some of the parents of the victims also felt unconscious and collapsed in the hallways throughout the proceedings. And I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't handle all of this. It was too much to take. So coming back to Javed, in his notebook, he had written the detail of all the murders as if he took pride in them. But when he finally appeared in court, he and his accomplices, they sort of acted really strange and unusual, like almost as if they sang a different tune, because they were constantly found giggling. His accomplices also, because obviously they were little, they were teenagers, they were seen giggling throughout the court proceedings. And they also held news clippings of themselves in which they appeared, and sort of admiring their own photographs. They seemed almost oblivious to the consequences and the penalties they were about to face. Even in court, Javed did not care about the boys, about his accomplices, and he made sure that they were given the proper, whatever was written in the jail manual, they were given all of that, and they were being treated well. He would ask the boys that whether they were given bathtubs in the bathrooms and whether they were being treated well. So aside from making sure that his accomplices or his boys were being treated well, aside from being concerned for his boys, he suddenly changed all of his story. He told that this was all staged and this was basically a drama, and that he did not kill the boys and he was only an eyewitness to the murders. And of all the 100 boys, 4 of them can be proven to be alive because 3 of them were Sajid, Sabir, and Nadeem. And he said that the fourth boy was in Shad Bagh and Ishaq Billah's son can recognize him and he could prove that. Why did you stage all this drama? To which he said that he staged all this drama to highlight the issue of the runaway children of the poor people who become victim of evil people. And regarding the whereabouts of all the other children, he said that it was the police's job to find them. When he was asked that, okay, then what about how this idea of staging this drama came into your mind? You know what he said? He basically made up a story and he said that this idea came into his mind when one day he decided that he and his 4 other friends, now these 4 other friends are not the little boys, these 4 friends are other friends of his, and Ishaq Billah was one of them. He said that one day he and his 4 friends decided that they're going to find the boy who beat him up and they're going to punish him. So Javed used to go to Minare Pakistan area and inquire all the children about the boy, and his friends would take some of the boys to this house, to the Ravi Road house, and they would feed them and they would clothe them. So the next day Javed said he bought a camera for Ishaq and they used to take the pictures of all the boys and they used to write the names and etc. But that didn't exactly match the story of what they found at the crime scene. Obviously, they found the barrel of acid, they found the play cards, they found the notebook, and most importantly, he confessed to killing the children and he gave all the details. He was asked about this. He was asked, okay, so why did you give a judicial confession in front of a judicial magistrate and that you had been warned that it could be used against you in the future? Why did you do that? And to that he said, because I was under the pressure of police and I was scared that the police might do something to me. Then they asked, okay, so what about the barrels of the acid and the play cards? You know what he said? He said that the barrels actually contained mobile oil and he had placed chunks of beef in them to mislead the police. And regarding the play cards, he said that Ishaq had actually helped him place the posters, and Ishaq was actually illiterate and he couldn't read what was written on the play cards. I mean, it doesn't make sense, he made these silly excuses contradicting all the statements that he told before. He kept on making excuses that his memory was fogged up and he couldn't remember things from his head injuries, and he kept on blaming the police, that the police is evil. He just tried to portray that the police is evil and that the police was after him for no reason. And at one point, even the judge says that you are giving 80% irrelevant stories that are not matching the descriptions that you gave before. He basically just kept on saying that he was innocent. In the meantime, the authorities, they brought in a Photoshop owner, the shop where Javed got all of the photographs developed from. So they reached out to this Photoshop owner and they inquired about these photographs. They showed him at least 57 photographs, out of which he identified 7, and he said that 32 of them may have been developed at his shop. He didn't confirm it because he said that he personally does not develop them and that he has 2 other people for the job. Also, because Javed kept on claiming that he was innocent, remember that young editor, he hired a cameraman and he recorded all of his video and audio confessions. There were 2 video recordings. Now, one of this video was at least 3 minutes long, in which Javed had initially, he used his exact words again that I had killed 100 children, and he basically said all his confession all over again. And there was another video that was at least 30 minutes long. In these videos, there was more than enough evidence to obviously give the final verdict. And in these videos, Javed had said it himself. The words came out of his mouth that हाँ खुद मारा था. So moving forward, in February of 2000, Javed actually pled not guilty. But there were at least more than 107 witnesses, including the families of all the children and the missing children. And also Riaz, he was also a witness. And they all testified against him. So in March, the judge of that court where all of this session was taking place, he gave his final verdict, and he said that you will be strangled to death by the same iron chain in front of the parents whose children you killed. Your body will then be cut into 100 pieces and put in acid the same way you killed the children. This judge, he was saying that in the light of qisas. Qisas is in our Islamic Sharia, it's qisas literally means eye for an eye. But the judge, he got so emotional, he forgot that qisas is only applicable to the victim or the victim's heir. The victim or the victim's heir can basically ask for these kind of things. The human rights official also jumped in, saying that this style of death penalty is condemned. And the Islamic Ideology Council also stepped in, saying that this can cause a misunderstanding about the Shariat, because in Islam we are to maintain the dignity of a dead body even if it is that of a non-Muslim. And according to the hadith, we are not to speak ill of the dead because they have already met their fate. The council said that cutting of a dead body into pieces was called masala. Now, I don't know if it's masala or if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but they said that it was called masala in pre-Islamic terms, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had strictly prohibited Muslim from undertaking this practice. So he received the usual death penalty, but on 100 counts, because obviously he took 100 lives. And Sajid was a bit older. He was 20 at the time. He also received the death penalty. And Sabir, because he was the youngest of them, he was 13 or 14 years old at the time. He received 43 years in prison. And Nadeem, he received 63 years. I'm sorry if one of my lash looks really weird. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with it. So it takes months or even sometimes years to carry out the execution. So Javed and Sajid had to wait for their turn. But there's a big twist to the story. I apply blush like this, that's why I seem really creepy. I'm sorry. In October of 2001, Javed and Sajid, they were found dead in their prison cells. They were kept in separate prison cells, and they were both found dead at the same time. It had appeared that they had taken their own life by hanging with the bed sheets of their prison cells, but their autopsy reports revealed something very strange. Both of them had strangulation marks around their blood-splashed necks. Their hands, feet, and nails had gone blue. They were bleeding from their mouth and nostrils, and the tongue of one of them had a cut mark on it. An injury mark was also seen around Sajid's neck, and countless healed wounds, seemingly inflicted with a blunt weapon, were also found all over Javed's body. Now, the jail officials claimed that Javed had tried to attempt suicide a dozen of times and that his behavior was strange. He would sometimes request for milk in the middle of the night. I mean, I don't see anything strange in it. I drink milk in the middle of the night. But here's what I think, and this is just my opinion. I think that both of them were killed by a group of people because they just couldn't wait for the execution to take place in years. So they must have went to the prison cells and make it appear as if they had taken their own lives, while in reality they must have killed them both. Because when the prison guard, he was questioned that where were you when they were apparently taking their lives, he said that I was sleeping. It's kind of a mystery, sort of, whether the both of them took their own lives or whether it was murder. I don't know. I couldn't find anything on it. Nobody came to claim Javed's body. Even his own brothers, they said that he died for us the day he had confessed to killing 100 children. And they also said that they have nothing to do with him. His body was never claimed. So yeah, we conclude this case finally, and and forgive me if I'm missing any details. I think I covered all of it. Yeah, and I covered it in the best possible way I could. And I'm sorry if this seems really weird. I know it seems really weird, but okay. So anyways, this was the longest case I've ever read and the most brutal one yet in Pakistan especially. And honestly, I never knew that we had such a notorious serial killer in our country. Because honestly, the crime rates are not that high, the reported ones at least. So I always intend to end my cases in the light of what the Quran and Ahadith say. So in the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 32, Allah says, "Whoever kills a soul unless for a soul or for corruption done in land, it is as if he had slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved mankind entirely." And in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 151, Allah says, "And do not kill the soul which Allah has forbidden to be killed, except by legal right. This has He instructed you that you may use reason." Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, "Whoever killed a muahid, a person who is granted the pledge of protection by Muslims, shall not smell the fragrance of paradise, though its fragrance can be smelled at a distance of 40 light years." So that concludes this video, and I hope you all like this video. And please do not mix up to true crime with any agenda, or this is just what I'm interested in. I've always been interested in true crimes. Did I say that this was the longest case I've ever done? Yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. So inshallah, I will meet you in the next video. Allah Hafiz, and take care and stay safe.